What's up, Dolphins fans? Welcome to the Dolphins Today by Chat Sports. I am Nick Roloff. Very fun show on tap as we shift the page from the first week of the preseason to the second week of the preseason, where this week the Dolphins will welcome in the Washington Commanders for a Saturday night matchup. Jaden Daniels, maybe Tua Tagovailoa. It will be a lot of fun. And on today's show, we have a lot to talk about, including the latest news surrounding the Fins. They released a player. There's a lot of injury news and notes that came out of today's practice that we have to discuss. Ryan Tannehill, should Miami bring back the former Dolphins QB after watching whatever that was on last Friday between Mike White and Skylar Thompson, also Q&A, and then we'll also preview a little bit that Commanders-Dolphins first preseason game. But as always, get the chat started by shouting out your city. Let me know where all the real ones are watching from today, as we do have 80 people starting off in the chat. Let's freaking go. We got Daniel Berry's Sports Highlights talking what's up. We got Kristen Reinhart, a legend, saying what's up, liked AG in Edgewood, Maryland. We got Dave in Pennsylvania, Kyle in Orlando, Michael in Greenville, Texas, Brandy in Syracuse, New York. Chad Jones says they need to get rid of Mike White. Listen, I am someone who thought had two good quarterbacks. I thought there was really good depth at the position. I was just like, well, Mike White, Skylar Thompson, former starters, like, I think they could be fine. But then after watching that game last Friday, I don't want to overreact, but it was ugly. It was ugly. Don is in the Bahamas. Eldright Thompson is in Miami, Florida. Kristen's in California. Ezra in Rockledge, Florida. Annapolis, Maryland. A couple people watching from Maryland. Bernard in San Antonio, JL in Hollywood, Life Lesson, Abilene, Texas. I always say Abilene wrong. I don't know, but I always get corrected from the Texans down here when I work. Chad Jones, as always, in Virginia. Tim Boo, what's up, my friend? Rob L. in Fort Moore, Georgia. Fort Myers from Commander. I go to Fort Myers for vacation all the time, Commander. My family has a house down there. Actually, my parents are moving there. Shout out Mom and Dad. They're moving from my hometown of Rochester, New York in a couple months, at the end of September. So a month and a half. They'll be in Fort Myers long term in the first week of October. We got Pastor from Fort Myers, Florida as well. My guy Andy Amigo in Westlake, Florida. Let's go. Oh, good to see a lot of people in the chat today. And the news of the day surrounding the Miami Dolphins was Teair Tart being released, the defensive lineman that Miami signed earlier in the offseason during NFL free agency, could not make it to the second week of the preseason. We speculated that Tart could be on the outside looking in of this Dolphins roster bubble due to his poor performance in minicamp and OTAs, and then he got off to a rough start in training camp as well. Had a good week of practice the week of the Atlanta Falcons preseason game, but then ultimately it was not good enough to get him to the second week of the preseason. It's not like in the past either with the NFL where you have to like drop people as you go throughout the preseason. No, it's actually just one massive roster cut down day. I think August 27th is the exact date. So the Dolphins just elected to do it. Maybe they wanted to free up a roster spot for someone to come off the PUP list soon. Just speculating here, or maybe go out and sign someone in free agency, also just speculating. But either way, let me know your one word that Teair Tart got released. Let me know what your reaction was when you saw that news pop up this morning from Adam Schefter. I'm combining a word here. Not surprised, but it's all one. I'm not doing any spaces. Not surprised. That's what I'm doing. Because like I said, I did think that he was going to end up on the outside of this Dolphins 53-man roster. And this also might point a little bit to the positive training camp that Benito Jones has had, even though he's dealing with a little bit of an injury. Deshaun Hand has been good. Brandon Pili has been good. So there's been good enough performances from some of your defensive linemen, like Neville Gallimore as well. He played really well on Friday against the Atlanta Falcons. So I think it just gives you more flexibility when you know that you like what you've been seeing from some of your other guys. It's like, well, Tart's not getting the job done. We can get rid of him. Eric says pop. AG says same. Terry says no surprise. Jael with a joke? Okay, let's read this out. Why don't tarts ever tell secrets? Because they're afraid they're going to crumble under pressure. PPE says there are several backup quarterbacks available. Sign Kaepernick. No. How long has it been? Like, Goldman's with us again. Shout out to Matt Goldman, who was producing our stream last Friday and will be with us again this Saturday. How long has it been? When was the last time he played? Was it 2013, 2012, 2014?
Yeah, no,
when was it?
It's been a minute.
It's been at least 10 years.
Let's put it this way. Jim Harbaugh was coaching the 49ers, went to Michigan, now is back in the NFL. So it's been a little while.
Yeah, I just can't do Kaepernick. There's better quarterbacks out there right now that they could trade for. There's better quarterbacks that you can potentially get to be your backup, not counting Kaepernick. One of them could be Ryan Tannehill, the former Dolphins quarterback who, listen, there's a lot to make about Ryan's career in Miami, but he's had a really good post-Dolphins career with the Tennessee Titans. I know it's been rough the past couple of seasons, but that 2019 to 2021 stretch when he had the Titans in the AFC Championship game and back-to-back division titles where they were actually, I believe, the 1 seed one year, right, in 2020, the year after they went to the AFC Championship game, and then they lost to Baltimore. It was a little reversal, I believe that was. Like, tough stretch for them in terms of losing, but there was a lot of success there with Tannehill. Mike Vrabel was coach of the year. That team was absolutely humming. Should the Dolphins bring back Tannehill after the poor display of quarterback play we watched with Mike White and Skylar Thompson? Type S for sign, type P for pass. A lot of people have some thoughts down in the comment section on it. We'll get to it in a second.
In my thoughts, what's up, everybody, is that I think a backup quarterback is the second most important position in the NFL. Like, quarterbacks go down, injuries happen. I've seen a lot of S's for sign. I totally agree. Tannehill's a proven quarterback. He's had, obviously, a long time just with the Dolphins fans and with the organization. So I think why not bring him in? Again, we were doing the watch party together, how poor Mike White and Skylar Thompson played, and we're going to dive into that even sooner. Someone said trade for Zach Wilson. That's never going to happen. That's not a good use of any Chris Greer's effort in any way. So I think you got to go after somebody with experience, somebody that's played in the NFL within the last few years. Skylar and Mike aren't in, and especially if Tua goes down, you need somebody that can throw the ball with at least somewhat accuracy, and I think Tannehill's the guy because Thompson and White have not shown it.
Yeah, Herbie's typing sign, Don sign, Ezra sign, AG says pass, Benjamin sign, Joni sign, Chad Jones sign. Let's see, Luke says sign, Brandy says sign, Pastor sign. Listen, we're going to do an entire segment on today's show about Ryan Tannehill and why I believe it's probably in the best interest of the Miami Dolphins to go out and sign him, as he is the best free agent quarterback without a doubt. But we will also have 8 names in that segment. I won't name them off now. I do not want to spoil the episode because I think it's a really good one. It's going to be our second segment of 4 on today's live show. But in that segment, we're going to also bring up 8 quarterbacks that are currently on NFL rosters that the Dolphins could think about trading for if a Tua injury occurred, or if they just really dislike Mike White and Skylar Thompson and believe they need to upgrade that backup quarterback spot before the NFL season gets underway. 8 backup quarterbacks in the NFL that Miami could go out and target that would be better than Mike White and Skylar Thompson. That is on that end of the segment. But before we get there, we do have a couple more things to talk about here, and one of them is we need the likes to get up, folks. We have 140 plus people watching, but only 21 likes. Do you love the Miami Dolphins? If you do, hit that thumbs up icon, and if you're one of the 140 people in today's live show, I am going to assume that you are a big-time Miami Dolphins fan. So if that's the case, make sure you hit that thumbs up icon. We at least have to get to 70 likes. Got to get to 50% likes. So let's go. Hit that thumbs up icon. Just move that next one into the weigh-in instead of the weigh-in option. Because I think that one's in the title one, and it's got to be the one to the left. Just so you know. 33 likes. We got to get to 1. We at least got to get to 70. At least 70. By the way, on the Tannehill stuff, more people saying sign. AD, Paul, Andrew. AD also says Justin Fields. Justin Fields may be mentioned on that segment. He might be. That's good. Still only 46 likes, folk. We need to get 70. We need to get 70. We'll revisit the numbers in just a second. But I do quickly want to ask the Fins fans another question. After 1 week of the preseason, and we only have 2 preseason games left, and we're, what are we almost here, 3.5 weeks away from the regular season? That sounds about right. Predict the Miami Dolphins 2024 record, folks. Where are we going? I have predicted in the past 11-6. I am going to probably make another video leading up to week 1 of a final Dolphins record prediction. We'll see if anything changes based off injuries and other NFL teams, divisions. Listen, Hassan Reddick, he is not going to be playing for the Jets. Maybe that might impact Miami because maybe I had them splitting with New York, and now they go 2-0 against the Jets. So we'll have another final record prediction, but my initial one was 11-6. Let's see what the Dolphins fans have to say. Benjamin says 11-6. AD says 12-5. Terry 12-5, AG 13-4, Herbie 17-0. Boy, would that be fun. Boy, would that be fun. Ezra 13-4, 12-5 from Andrew Carlson.
A lot of consistency.
Devon 14-3. I'll say this, or Devin. Don't know which one it is. I'm sorry for mispronouncing if I did. The vibes around this team are much more higher now than they were. Because I've asked this question to Dolphins fans on live shows in the past, and this is the highest that I've ever seen the consensus. It's usually a consensus like 10-7, 11-6, but there's a lot of 12-5s and higher. Chad Jones isn't changing his opinion. He has always been someone that has said 9-8. Chad, he's a realist, which I don't have an issue with, because if that's his prediction, that's his prediction. I can't shame it. Krampus says 15-2, Ricardo 12-5, Eddie E 17-0, Jay Byron says 12-5, 10-7 from AD. Mick says, "Are you guys real?" I think I'm real. I hope I'm real. Tim Boo says 11-6. All right, we got to revisit our likes, but I will let you know what's coming up on our live show today. Dolphins news and rumors coming out of today's practice. It was actually a padded practice for the Dolphins. They haven't done many of those, but we have the latest injury news. We'll talk more about Teair Tart being released, and then we'll talk as well about some interior offensive line stuff as well. Sign Ryan Tannehill. That's our second segment, and some other quarterbacks around the league that the Dolphins could target in a trade if they feel the need to improve their backup quarterback situation. A live Q&A where we will answer your questions. I did see someone already get one in. Hashtag Dolphins is the way to get that on the show for that segment. Or you can super chat as well. No super chat menu today, but we will have a lot of fun. And if you send in a super chat, we'll still celebrate it, get it on screen, and have a ton of fun. And then lastly, Dolphins-Commanders preview. I got 10 players that I'm going to have my eye on for preseason week 2 as we get closer and closer to Dolphins cut down day for the roster. But before we get into that, you have to hit that thumbs up button. I said we're not starting the show until we get 70 likes. We got 61 likes right now. 160 people watching. We need 70 likes. Hit that thumbs up button. Only need 8 more likes. Once we get to 70, we'll start today's show. But we need to get to 70. It's not a want, it's a necessity, folks. Show won't start. The real show, that is, where we talk about everything happening around the Miami Dolphins, baby. AD got in a good question.
Come on, all you got to do is hit the likes, not hard.
Hey,
guys.
we got the 70 likes. Let's freaking go. Shout out to all the real ones, and now we'll get today's show started. Before we do that, though, Matt, I am curious, because what we talked about earlier, if the questions we're going to pull with some of the software issue, let me know. Go to like the lower one or upper one and just see if there's questions sitting in there. I'm just curious. No. Upper, there is no upper. But there should be low. There should be like the first I think. Yeah, none of those. But I did think I saw a couple. Or there's one lower. Okay, all lowercase. Well, maybe they were both lowercase. All right, that's good to know though. Okay. All right, we got it, baby. It's time to get into the first segment on today's show with the latest news and rumors surrounding the Miami Dolphins. Welcome to Dolphins Today by Chat Sports, and we headlined today's show with this piece of Dolphins news coming out this morning. Adam Schefter had the initial report that the Dolphins are actually releasing veteran defensive tackle and defensive lineman Teair Tart. We'll talk about that and what it means for this Dolphins defense and how as it progresses throughout training camp. But I will say this right off the bat when it comes to Teair Tart. I am not surprised that Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel decided to move on from the veteran defensive lineman. Tart has a ton of upside and a ton of talent. He's displayed that when he was a Tennessee Titan because he had a good year 2 seasons ago. Then he went to the Texans and it didn't really work out there. But the Dolphins bet on the talent when they signed Tart to a 1-year deal earlier in the offseason during free agency. But he showed up to OTAs and minicamp in June and July. I don't know if he was injured or out of shape, but it was widely reported that he did not look like he was in shape. Maybe it was an injury, but maybe not. And it just never looked like he got his feet under him in Miami and really performed to the expectations this coaching staff had for the veteran defensive lineman. And with other guys playing so well, and how good we saw them play against the Falcons on Friday night in the first preseason game, it does not surprise me that they moved on from Teair Tart and are starting to go forward with some of these other players on the roster. But let me know, and I'm curious, and I want to see everyone give me your 1 words down below for the Teair Tart cut. When you first got that notification, or if you're just learning for the first time today, which if you are, make sure you follow me on Twitter because I would have kept you updated. But let me know your 1 word to seeing Teair Tart be released. And that's kind of what I want to go here. He's never panned out. He never flashed. Tart has the talent, but he just doesn't work hard 100% of the time. And I hate calling someone out for their work ethic, but it's kind of been the story for him in his career a little bit, where he has the ability to just eat blocks on the interior and free up linebackers to fill gaps in the run game. But he just has not been able to just stack seasons, games, practices to keep a long, good streak of football going. And when that is the case and you're not giving it your 100% all and you're not coming into mandatory minicamp and OTAs in shape and you're having to get back into shape during that time, you're just going to get passed up by others on the roster. And I think that's what happened here, because when you think about what the Dolphins do have on their defensive line depth chart, when you just look at the interior and don't look in like a Zach Sealer or Calais Campbell, like these defensive lineman depth pieces are actually performing extremely well. Benito Jones, who's missed a couple practices here as of late, has been really, really solid in the beginning of the offseason and in the beginning of training camp. Deshaun Hand has been making plays left and right in the game against the Falcons, but also in practice. Brandon played extremely well on Friday. Isaiah Mack had a couple good plays, and we saw the former Dallas Cowboy, Neville Gallimore, really showcase his athleticism on the interior defensive line during that first preseason game in Atlanta. So to me, I think the writing was just on the wall here that Teair Tart wasn't going to make this roster. And either they did him a solid to release him a little bit early and say, hey, maybe you can try to latch on with other players or a different team during the training camp and preseason. But the Dolphins just ran out of room. They like some of those other guys, and I don't blame them because I like what I've really seen out of this defensive line on the interior through the first little bit here of training camp. So it is what it is. Teair Tart just not able to make this roster, ran out of room for the Miami Dolphins, and maybe they just look in a different direction now and really just have trust on some of the guys that are currently already on this roster. We also do have some other injury news that we have to get to here in terms of the Dolphins, and we're really going to be talking about Ethan Bonner here. And it's okay, Goldman. We could just go to a normal L3 at the bottom here. Don't worry about that. But Ethan Bonner has missed the last 2 practices for the Miami Dolphins, and it was recently reported by Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald that it ended up being a concussion, and that's the reason why he is being held out. Not ideal for Bonner, and it really stinks that he suffered a concussion, which I don't really remember anything crazy happening in that game on Friday against the Falcons, but evidently concussion-like symptoms popped up the following week, and it's the reason why he's missed the Monday practice and Tuesday practice. But he is hoping, and this is the report, that he is going to be cleared by Thursday, so he is going to be able to play on Saturday in the Dolphins' second preseason game. Bonner's had an excellent camp for the Fins and is looking to push for a roster spot. Another corner that we have to talk about, Cam Smith, the second-year guy from South Carolina who was a second-round pick in 2023. He's back at practice. He basically has not been here for the past 2 weeks, missed the first preseason game, and he's obviously been someone that we've talked about a lot on the channel. Me personally, Jake Rietma, Tom Downey over the past year or so, ever since he got selected by the Fins, just due to the fact that they took him so high as a second-round pick, but he did not play in his rookie season under Vic Fangio, and he needs reps, man. And it's important that he is going to have to stay healthy for the rest of preseason training camp. Because if he wants to contend for a roster spot, and I do believe he's kind of a lock, and maybe contend was the wrong word to use there, but if he wants to have a role on this Dolphins defense this season, he needs to prove that he is worthy of being that second-round pick he was last season, because he just hasn't been able to show that so far, and he hasn't been able to be on the field for practice or the preseason so far. But Cam Smith being back, hopefully he could stay healthy and prove why he was a second-round pick in 2023. Some other injuries that we have to talk about on today's show as well. Mohamed Kamara, Aaron Brewer, Benito Jones, Tanner Conner, Jody Fortson Jr., Jeff Wilson Jr., Jaylen Waddle, and Anthony Schwartz is all players that did not participate in practice today. They were not seen at all. Kamara's missed 4 straight. Aaron Brewer, the starting center for the Miami Dolphins, who is projected to miss a couple weeks, according to Barry Jackson. We saw Fortson Jr. and Conner leave the first preseason game for the Dolphins. Conner, we don't know his status in terms of when he's coming back. It was reported that Fortson Jr. had just a stinger, so maybe he's being held out of practice for precautionary reasons. Wilson is also a little bit interesting that he didn't show up. Waddle's still working his way back after missing about a week of practices due to that minor injury, according to Mike McDaniel. But make sure you are subscribed to the channel, because this is why, right? We're going to cover you on everything happening surrounding the Dolphins. Highlights, rumors, injury news, roster moves, as we did with Teair Tart. Hit that sub button. We're on the road to 58K subs, and I'd like to get there before this week ends. We will get a boost on Saturday when we have our watch party with the second preseason game against the Commanders. So make sure you subscribe and join us for that as well. All right, let's talk about Odell Beckham Jr. now, because Tua Tagovailoa, after practice, had some media availability, and they asked him about OBJ. Here's Barry Jackson with the initial note, and the main takeaway I had from Tua's press conference. Tua said that he's thrown with OBJ, but only stationary. OBJ still on the PUP list, but allegedly is moving well. Tua said once he's able to start running and catching balls, it's a whole nother thing. That's the one of the tougher parts for the new wide receivers in this offense. And that's kind of where I want to take this conversation. And I said that when OBJ was placed on the PUP list, I wasn't concerned. I thought it was a minor injury, and he would be back after a week or so, and he would be ready for week 1 of the NFL season. But last week, when some more news and notes about OBJ being week to week from head coach Mike McDaniel came out, then I'm kind of out on that idea. And I think Odell Beckham Jr. is actually going to be missing the first week of the NFL season. Because the Dolphins offense is so complex and different from other ones where there's so much motion, you really have to be on time with your timing between quarterback and wide receiver. I just don't think there's going to be enough time for OBJ and Tua to build that rapport up, and I think Odell Beckham Jr. is going to ultimately miss the first game against the Jaguars on September 8th, which is a little bit disappointing. Another thing coming out of Tua Tagovailoa's availability today is that he is pledging for or advocating for starters to be playing in this preseason game on Saturday. Tagovailoa said that he hopes to play against the Commanders this Saturday, but he and team leaders will talk with head coach McDaniel on the game plan this week. I think this is a smart idea, whether it's in the third preseason game, whether it's in the second preseason game. I don't care which one it is, but the healthy guys on this roster need live reps. And I get the concern with playing them in the preseason because it's not necessary and you don't want to risk injury there. But I also think it's irresponsible to go into your first meaningful football game and all of your starters have played no real contact football, because you don't really play contact football in practice, right? So the fact that they wouldn't have done this since, a full year ago, the last time they played in January against the Chiefs, I think that would be a monumental mistake for the Dolphins starters, they at least need 1-2 drives on both sides of the field and team to make sure they're ready to go for week 1 against Jacksonville, because you have to start off hot against the Jaguars at home and then follow it up with a big win at home in week 2 against the Buffalo Bills as well. All right, coming up in just a second, folks, padded practice notes, because there's not been often where the Dolphins have had full pads on for practice and they've gone at it each other. We're going to have the latest notes and takeaways from today's practice. But before we get into that, I need to make sure you are representing the Dolphins every single Sunday and really every single day by getting some Dolphins jerseys. You can get them at chatsports.com/Dolphins jersey. You can get Waddle. You can get Tyreek Hill. You can get Jalen Ramsey, Tua Tagovailoa. It does not matter. Make sure you get your jerseys, any color, any size, any type of way. You get the throwbacks. I like the throwbacks like this one right here from Tua that they're going to be wearing on week 2 against the Buffalo Bills. Make sure you get your Dolphins jersey today. Like you said, can get any one you want. Chatsports.com/Dolphins jersey is the link. Put that in the description and comments for all of y'all at home. So go get your jerseys today. I wouldn't want to miss out as the season is getting very, very close to underway. All right, the first note that I want to talk about with Dolphins practice today is, it's a good one, folks. Jaylen Wright, he's continuing to impress, and he had such a good first preseason game against the Falcons, turned a lot of heads, didn't turn my head because I was expecting Jaylen Wright to flash that ability and dynamic playmaking and speed. He's continuing to do it, man. And the part that is actually a little bit surprising to me is the physicality that he's playing with. I thought he was more of a speed back, but I should have known after he got that good scouting profile of being a good pass protector and blocker that he would not be afraid of hitting the hole and hitting that linebacker and defensive lineman and getting through the contact. Jaylen Wright has been extremely good for this Dolphins team, and I expect him to be that third running back for this depth chart without a doubt behind Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane, creating the best running back trio in the NFL. I also want to mention this. Elijah Campbell might be cooked, and it's not because he's injured, but the rotation safety who probably had the edge on that fourth safety spot on the depth chart, I think there's a legit chance he ends up losing that spot because it's a competitive room when you think of what the Dolphins have with Javon Holland, Jordan Poyer obviously being the starters. You got Marcus Bay, who was signed, who's anticipated to be the third safety. Who knows if that's ultimately going to be the case? You have Elijah Campbell in there. You have the 6th-round rookie Patrick McMorris. And you also have Nick Needham working in at safety a little bit here. And with how well Patrick McMorris has played over the past week and a half, including a great performance in the first preseason game, it would not shock me one bit if Elijah Campbell ends up off this Dolphins 53-man roster. I'm not projecting it as of right now, and that's the reason why this is saying might be cooked. But with McMorris continuing to play better and Chris Greer obviously liking him, spent his pick on him. I know it was late, but spent a pick. I think there's a chance that McMorris might end up being this fourth safety behind May, Holland, and Jordan Poyer. All right, let's talk about the offensive line now because there is a little bit of a shuffle on the interior here, and this has obviously been one of the biggest talking points for the Fins ever since the draft after they didn't do anything in the interior offensive line. But Robert Jones seems to be the starting left guard for this team right now with Isaiah Wynn still on the PUP list. And I'll tell you this, Robert Jones also was the orange practice player today, which means he had an outstanding practice on Monday, and he's getting rewarded. And with Aaron Brewer out for the next couple weeks, as Barry Jackson noted, with that hand injury, Liam Eichenberg, who was initially listed as the starting right guard on the depth chart for the Fins, now has to go back to playing center, which he's been a backup center for his entire career, which slots in Jack Driscoll at right guard, who I labeled as a loser in that game against the Atlanta Falcons, which maybe that was a little bit harsh because PFF actually graded Jack Driscoll pretty high, and Driscoll was actually the second highest rated player according to Pro Football Focus in that first preseason game against Atlanta, only trailing Jaylen Wright. But I didn't like what I saw from Driscoll as he got some snaps at center in that game. But as right guard, maybe Driscoll could play a little bit of a story here. And reports have been out there from different reporters, not just one, but a few, that Jack Driscoll, after a really tough first week and a half, in Dolphins training camp has really picked things up over the past week or so. And with a good game against Atlanta, if he continues that momentum with a good week of practice this week and a good game on Saturday against the Commanders, Driscoll might be able to nab that starting right guard spot if Isaiah Wynn and Aaron Brewer are both unable to go, with Wynn likely being unable to go as he's still on the PUP list. Let me know, though, are you concerned about the O-line? I could have just showed you your starting left guard, center, and right guard for the first game against the Jaguars. Obviously, you would have Teron Armstead and Austin Jackson on the 2 outside spots. But let me know, are you concerned about the O-line with where it is right now? Type Y for yes or type N for no. I'll say this, I am not happy with where it is, and I am a little scared of this offensive line. I've talked about it so much, right? With this offensive line and right guard being a massive need for the Fins. And with that not being completely addressed still, and then you've got so many injuries happening so far, it's not the best thing in the world if you're asking me. So you could just go to a full screen here, Goldman, it's fine, with a different L3. But I don't know, man. I'm terrified of this offensive line. I don't like where it's at right now, and I would still like to see someone get brought in, maybe a trade, maybe a free agent signing. Either way, having Rob Jones, Liam Eichenberg, and Jack Driscoll all being starters week 1 when we thought it would only be one of them starting week 1, it does concern me a little bit, because if this offensive line holds this offense back, I'm going to be very upset at Chris Grier for not addressing that issue during the draft or in free agency. All right, that's going to do it for today's show. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel because, well, we're going to have everything you need surrounding the Miami Dolphins, whether it be news, notes, takeaways, highlights, rumors, trade stuff. We have it all, including live shows every week, Tuesday live show, watch parties for every game. It's going to be a very fun season, so make sure you're subscribed and join us for this big-time run the Dolphins are hopefully going to be able to make. All right, one segment down. A lot of people concerned about the offensive line. A lot of people concerned, which I am as well. So everyone's with me here. Everyone's with me here. Tim Boo says yes. Jay Byron, Andrew, David, Quentin, Brandy. Every Noodle says tackles no, interior yes. Well, that's kind of how I feel as well. That's how I feel as well. The interior is scary. I'm very confident in Teron Armstead and Austin Jackson. No need to be concerned there. John says yes. AD says yes. AG says yes. Solar says, had the boys just chosen to be a bit modest on the paycheck, we could win a Super Bowl. Well, you got to get paid. Like, I understand that thought process. It's nice if people take a little bit of a discount, but you got to set up your family for generational wealth, man. You don't get to play in the NFL forever with so many injuries and so many so many contact injuries with the concussion stuff as well. You just can't leave money on the table in the NFL. It's tough. Quarterbacks, maybe you can. But like offensive linemen, corners, wide receivers, you're getting hit every play, man. It's tough. It is tough. All right, coming up in just a second here, we're going to have a Ryan Tannehill segment where we're going to break down about why I think the Dolphins should bring back Ryan Tannehill to this roster. Before we make that, or do that, make sure you hit that thumbs up icon. We have 102 likes. I like that number. Let me read something here. What is this? No, nothing crazy. I was just looking to see if anything with Brandon Ayuk changed yet. Doesn't look like, as it looked like it almost was going to be official that Brandon Ayuk was going to be a Steeler today, which would have been not great. Tavon Austin retired.
Tavon Austin retired.
Yeah.
Oh, that college tape, legendary.
Yeah. Yeah. Sad that Tavon Austin retired. Sad to say Tavon Austin retired. All right, though. Shout out to Andy for retweeting and liking my tweet about going live. Appreciate you, Andy. Shout out to Andy, man. Shout out to Andy. All right. Let me take a sip of my coffee, sip of my water, and then we're going to get this show on the road with Ryan Tannehill. This is coffee. This is water. There's a custom L3 that goes with this one, by the way. Once you're ready, let's do it. All right, let me know when you're ready, and then we'll get into this thing. I think the Miami Dolphins should sign Ryan Tannehill in NFL free agency and bring him back to the Miami Dolphins. I think it's a question that a lot of Dolphins fans are asking after what we saw from Skylar Thompson and Mike White in the first preseason game against Atlanta. And to me, I actually do believe this is something Chris Grier should do. I think it's a smart move. There's a lot of reasons that go into potentially bringing back Ryan Tannehill in terms of the results we've seen from Skylar Thompson and Mike White in training camp in the first preseason game and in the past, but also realizing where this Dolphins roster is and providing yourself extra insurance just in case a Tua Tagovailoa injury occurs, because even though Tua played 17 games last season and we feel confident about him doing it again, we know about his past, and that is one of the biggest concerns with Tua. So having an established backup quarterback could really benefit the Miami Dolphins. But before we get into the nuts and bolts of today's show, make sure you follow me on Twitter, because if a move does happen with the Fins, whether it be releasing a player like Teair Tart yesterday when we broke that down on Twitter and the channel, we're going to have you covered on any move the Dolphins end up making. My handle is @Nick_Roloff. Go give me a follow. I'll follow back the first 10 people that follow me from today's show, so give me a follow right now. All right, but the reason why this conversation has been sparked is because of how poor these two players had of a performance in that week 1 game against the Atlanta Falcons. It was a hard watch, man. Skylar Thompson went 8 of 19, 95 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 INT, and that 1 pick was horrific. He threw it right to the defender over the middle of the field. There was a little bit of pressure in his face, but still bad that he made that throw. See the QB rating there, but then the Mike White one was, I mean, this is bad. I'm actually convinced that I could go out there and have a better performance. And maybe that's aggressive, and I know the Dolphins wide receivers didn't help him out any bit because there was some drops, but 4 of 14, 26 yards, and a QB rating of 39.6, like, it was some of the worst quarterback play that I have ever watched in my entire life. And I think our producer, Matt Goldman, can also second that. He was telling me that it was a tough watch live as well. Like, listen, I don't expect them to go out there with third-string offensive linemen, third-string wide receivers, and try to go deal and look like Patrick Mahomes out there. But if you want to be a backup quarterback and you want to have an NFL roster spot, you have to at least flash the capability of moving the football through the air. And both these quarterbacks, to me, just did not show me enough here. And the reason why I do want to talk about this even more is a possibility for the Dolphins to bring back Ryan Tannehill. It's because when you just look at what this Dolphins roster has right now, this team is absolutely loaded, and it has so many veterans at the near end of their contract on 1-year deals. Like, if Tua were to get hurt, you can't punt this season. You'd just be wasting so many people's times, like Calais Campbell, like Jordan Poyer, the tail end of Jalen Ramsey's career, like 1 year of Kendall Fuller's. You got him on a cheap 2-year deal because he wanted to come in here and compete for a title. Like, you can't waste the contracts that you have right now and some of the good veteran pieces you have on both sides of the football. So to me, getting a competent backup is one of the bigger priorities on this team potentially right now. And I think Tannehill is the best one available, and that's not even a think. That is a well-known fact of him being the best quarterback available on the free agent market. But the trade market could provide a different story, which we'll talk about on the end of today's show. But before we talk even more on Ryan Tannehill specifically, should the Dolphins sign Ryan Tannehill? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. Type S for sign or type P for pass. It's been an interesting final 4 seasons for Tannehill, at least leading up to this year, because, well, if you remember his 3-year stretch after leaving the Fins, when he helped the Titans go to the AFC Championship game, then 2 wildcard appearances. Like, he was really good in 2020 and 2021, having a good completion percentage, over 3,700 yards, 33 touchdowns, 21 touchdowns respectively, and a decent QBR. Now, it did fall off a cliff over the last 2 seasons. Injuries played a factor into that, having poor stats in 2022, and then having an even worse year in 2023 when he played, which ultimately led to Will Levis being the starter for the final 7 games of that season. But like I mentioned, when he first got to Tennessee, him and Mike Vrabel absolutely were looking like a duo that was going to be competing in the AFC for years to come. Now, yes, there was some big-time moments from Derrick Henry and big-time moments from A.J. Brown and some gaffes from other teams, like the Baltimore Ravens being the number 1 seed and choking in that 2019 season. But you can't knock that Tannehill at the helm got their team into a competitive spot in Tennessee. And you might be saying, well, yeah, that was a long time ago, but I don't even think it matters like that, because when you look at what the Titans roster was during that time, like, those Titans rosters are not better than the one Miami has right now. If you were to compare those two teams, I think the Dolphins would actually have a better roster spot in every single position outside of the offensive line. Like, if you were to give me Derrick Henry or the trio of Jalen Wright, Devon Achane, and Raheem Mostert, maybe this is a hot take, but you'd probably get better production from those 3 backs rather than just the one Derrick Henry. And then the wide receiver plays, no question. Waddle and Tyreek Hill are just absolutely OP, and I think the defense of Miami this season is better than those Titans defenses. So to me, Tannehill would have the best team that he's ever played on, and yes, he did not play well last year or the year prior, and he dealt with injuries. But as a backup option, if you needed to replace Tua because of an injury and you were going to try to stay competitive, Ryan Tannehill is probably as good as it gets. And we're going to talk more about it here in just a second. But we are sponsored by Prize Picks, and I'm happy that Prize Picks is back. They were with us last NFL season, and it's good to be here again for football that's joining us just around the corner. And make sure you get started with Prize Picks, because they're offering you a first deposit match up to $100 when you download the app and use code CLNS. Or you can just go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and input code CLNS to get a first deposit match up to $100. They're the absolute best way to play daily fantasy sports. They have great promotions for you. They lower stat projections on Tuesdays, Taco Tuesday, baby. They also allow you to get your entry backs if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. That's Flex Friday. They have the best way to play. They allow you to get your money back if you need to. And you can turn actually $10 into $1,000 right now with Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can do season-long projections. You can do daily projections for Dolphins games. I love everything Prize Picks has to offer. And make sure you get started today. Link's going to be in the description and comments of today's video. PrizePicks.com/CLNS is the link. CLNS is the promo code. First deposit match up to $100. Shout out to Prize Picks for sponsoring today's show. Pick more, pick less. That simple. All right, let's go into Ryan Tannehill now, because this is his career stats as a Miami Dolphin. And yes, he was a former first-round pick, actually wide receiver. I'm sure you guys knew that. Just kidding here. But Tannehill had an interesting career with Miami, right? Had a solid yardage, touchdown, wasn't asked to do a ton, led a team to the playoffs. Like, Tannehill was okay, but nothing really crazy that stood out to me. Like, he definitely was better with Tennessee and had more success with the Titans over the Miami Dolphins. There's certainly no disputing that if you're asking me. So my question is if he would even want to return to the Dolphins after being away from the team and not having the most success after being selected from him. Like, I do think that he would be open to coming back. Now, Miami would have to offer him that deal, but here's the thing here with Miami. Tannehill clearly wants a starting role. He would not have a starting role with the Miami Dolphins. Tua Tagovailoa is still there. But if it gets into training camp, if it gets into the regular season, and he's still a free agent, what is the holdup? Like, are you going to really just not play this season and just hope that a starting quarterback goes down and that's when a team calls you? It's not a bad idea, because there is going to be a guaranteed starting quarterback in the NFL that ends up getting hurt in the first month of the season. There just always happens. But maybe he wants security, and if the Dolphins come up to him after the 3 preseason games, there's no major injuries to any starting quarterbacks, and Chris Grier's like, hey, Tannehill, want to come be our backup quarterback this season? Why not say yes? But the question to me is, what happens if you want to bring in Ryan Tannehill and that ultimately he doesn't want to come to Miami? Because I do think a backup quarterback spot is still important for the Miami Dolphins. But if he doesn't want to come, like, what is the best option? Because I ain't going out there and grabbing some of these other dudes, because they are really bad in free agency. I'm not even going to mention any names. That's how bad it is. So we'd have to turn our attention to the QB trade market for a backup quarterback out there. And I've actually got 8 names that could be quite intriguing for the Dolphins in a trade situation. Here are some of the top backups in the NFL, if you're asking me. Justin Fields and Jameis Winston headline this list. Winston obviously backing up Deshaun Watson. They also have Tyler Huntley, who's last on our list. They have 2 quarterbacks that have had starting experience in the past. And I think if they wanted to part ways with one of them, I think Huntley and Jameis Winston are both upgrades over Mike White and Skylar Thompson, and it would only cost you about a 7th-round pick to get Huntley. Jameis Winston might cost you a 5th or something like that, but I think it could be worth it. Fields is an intriguing name because if Russell Wilson ends up winning that job and performs well early in the season, maybe that's a trade option. Kenny Pickett is interesting. Drew Lock is interesting as well. But the one that actually catches my eye the most here, if we're going to be honest, is Sam Howell, who was traded away from Washington to Seattle after they drafted Jaden Daniels and signed Marcus Mariota. Howell's behind Geno Smith. I think Howell got a raw deal in Washington this past year with how bad that offensive line is. I think Howell has a little bit of talent to him, and I think if Tua actually did go down, he'd be able to run the Mike McDaniel offense quite well. So if I were to trade for any of these 8 guys, I think Sam Howell would be my number 1, Fields number 2, Jameis Winston number 3. We're not going to rank all of them, but that would be my top 3 because I think Howell actually could run this offense quite well, and he's not afraid to be a gunslinger. I think Mike McDaniel would really like that. Out of those 8 quarterbacks, though, which quarterback interests you the most? We're not talking Tannehill here because we're just talking about 8 guys that if Tannehill was signed elsewhere or didn't want to come to Miami, the Dolphins could go out and still get if they wanted to address that backup quarterback job. Let me know which quarterback interested you the most from that 8-player list I had. Before we get out of here, I just do want to say this, though. Let's hope it doesn't come to this, because the only reason why we would have to have any of these guys plays is if Tua Tagovailoa got hurt. And we obviously do not want that at all. Tua had a really good season last season, leading the league in passing, playing in all 17 games. Never done that before. Let's hope he's able to do that for a second consecutive season, play in all 17, and have a strong finish to the year, because I do not want to have to worry about quarterback play outside of Tua Tagovailoa. Also, make sure you hit that follow button on me at Twitter, at Nick_Roloff. Like I said, if any Dolphins news happens or any moves are actually made by Chris Grier and this front office, you will find out first on my Twitter, at Nick_Roloff, and then we will come over here and make a video. So make sure you follow me over there. First 10 people get a follow back, so hopefully I see you over there. All right. Let's see what people had to say. Sam Howell from AG. Devon says Sam Howell. Fields from Kristen. Lionel from Howell. Paul says Howell. Yeah, I agree. He was in a scapegoat, man. I'm telling you right now, Sam Howell got a raw deal. I'm hoping Sam Howell is able to get another chance in the NFL as a starter, because I think he's got the capabilities of being a starter. Sure, did he turn the ball over a lot last year? Yes. But I think if he didn't have to have the worst offensive line in all of football, and he had some weapons to him. Like, I'm not going to discredit the Washington weapons, because Terry McLaurin was there, Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel. Like, they had guys, but, I mean, you get him like Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle, and you get that quick release and the strong arm that Howell has, it could be fireworks. Frank O'Connor's in the building. Shout out to my guy, one of the legends here at the channel, says Clone Tua. I'm in. Cloning technology been invented yet? Technology been invented yet? Justin Fields or Josh Dobbs? Josh Dobbs stinks. I'm out on Dobbs.
So I'll say to some of your QBs, Drew Lock I don't think would ever happen. I don't think, because of the fact that the Giants don't even have a
Tommy DeVito, baby.
They don't trust anybody in that room. So I think there's a reason why they assume Drew Lock. I don't see him going away. I really think Howell. I agree with a lot of the people here. Fields is also an option, and you're really not going to have to give up that much to go get Fields at this point. He's been passed around a bit now, and if you can get him for, a 5th or 6th, Nick, like that's not bad at all.
No, I don't think it would happen during the preseason, to be honest. Like, if he were to get traded, it would be during the regular season if Tua actually went down. because they traded for Howell from Washington. So they obviously like him a little bit too. And the only reason why they would deal him away is if Miami came over the top with a big-time offer and said, hey, man, we really need a quarterback. Can we send you like a 4th-round pick or something like that to get him? That's the only way I look at that being a possibility. But I did want to bring those 2 names up.
Someone said Talia, Tua's brother's available.
Yeah, I'm good on that, man.
I watched him play against Ohio State this year. He's okay.
He's not that good. I know it's cool. It would be cool to have him, but I don't think he's like that. All right, we do have a Q&A to get to here in just a second, and I think we need more questions, folks. I think we only have about 2 or 3 questions. So use hashtag Dolphins or Super Chat. Super Chat guarantees you, yes, guarantees you to get onto the show. If you use hashtag Dolphins, that's fine. You still might get on our mailbag, but you're at the discretion of producer Matt Goldman. So if he doesn't like your question, you might got it on there, or if he doesn't think your question is good enough to be on the show, then you might not be on there. But any super chat will get there. We only have 6 questions as of right now, so we probably need to get 2 or 3 more to get this show on the road here. So fire in any questions you have, whether it be on the Dolphins quarterback situation, defense injuries, projections, whatever you want to talk about here in this show. Let me know. Hashtag Dolphins. There's a D getting one in there about Sam Howell, Jameis Winston. Probably get a couple more. Once I see a couple more fire in here, we'll get the show started. But let me know. Let me know your questions. Hashtag Dolphins or Super Chat. That's the best way to guarantee a spot. Is that Super Chat icon. Also helps us grow the channel here a little bit. Be nice. Be nice.
Come on, you got questions? Nick's the expert on the Dolphins. Let's do this.
$50 still gets you into the Dolphins Aqua Club and Hall of Fame. Got the helmet by the side here. Got it on the side here.
Remember, hashtag Dolphins if you want this question to get answered on the show. So I'm seeing questions, but any form of hashtag Dolphins, all capitals, capital D with the Dolphins, lowercase Dolphins, like added to J, Gale, just put in. I hope I didn't butcher that name.
Yeah, AD. I've been calling him AD because I didn't want to butcher the name. He got a question in, but see if we get any more in, folks. Come on. Come on, let's get those questions in. Once I see 2 more questions fire in the chat, we'll get today started. We'll get today's Q&A started. There's one. There's one from, I'm going to go Devon. All right. Now we're ready to go here. All right. Now this is one, Golden, that you really as a producer have to like stay one step ahead here and know where you're going to go to questions and keep track of time and then go to weigh in. So just be on the mindset of that. Yeah, like those ones there, and it's just like this is one where you like have to always know what questions you want to go to next in there. So just like think ahead on this one as a producer because there's not a lot of graphics to change for. So instead of just sitting there doing waiting, just like make sure you're one step ahead. All right, let's do it. Let's get into today's mailbag. I'm Nick Roloff. This is a Dolphins Today mailbag here. Just one day away until the first or second preseason game for the Miami Dolphins against the Washington Commanders. This mailbag was filmed on our live show. If you missed it, well, Tuesdays every day or every week, 5 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure you come and join us and hit that sub button. But let's get today's show started with a question from my guy Devo. Who's more deserving to be on this roster, Duke Riley or Channing Tindall? This is an excellent question. Both these players are battling for that linebacker 4 spot. David Long Jr., Anthony Walker Jr., and Jordan Brooks are your clear-cut 3. I only think they keep 4 inside linebackers, so it's down to these 2 players if you're asking me. Zeke Vanderbilt has played well, but I still think it's between Riley and Tindall. I probably lean Duke Riley. Even though Tindall was a 3rd-round pick in 2022 out of the Georgia Bulldogs, he just has never really got it going for the Miami Dolphins. He did have a decent first preseason game, had 6 or 7 tackles, had a sack where he came screaming on an open hole to bring back or down Taylor Heineke. But Duke Riley has just been making more plays in training camp. I know Tindall had the better game against the Falcons, but every report and everything I've seen out of camp tells me Duke Riley is going to have that roster spot. He's also more experienced, which is where the Dolphins defense might want to go with that specific position. Devon Frazier here. Where do you think our defense will rank this year? I think they're going to rank very, very high. I believe that this Dolphins defense is extremely talented. And I'm also very bullish on new defensive coordinator for the Miami Dolphins, Anthony Weaver. I don't think Vic Fangio was it last year, man. Fangio, I think, has just kind of lost his fastball, if you will. Hate to call him old, but he's an older guy. And if you don't adjust with the times and change your style of defense to fit the modern NFL passing style, like, it's going to be struggle. Like, why do you think the Dolphins have had so much success against the New England Patriots and Bill Belichick over the past 2 or 3 seasons with Tua Tagovailoa and Mike McDaniel? It's because I don't think Belichick was able to really adjust to Mike McDaniel's offense quickly enough that he needed to. So with Anthony Weaver having a different style defense where it's much more attack you, blitz, bring you different fronts, trust your back end and secondary, which is very, very strong with Jalen Ramsey, Kendall Fuller, Javon Holland, Jordan Poyer. Like, I believe this Dolphins defense is going to be top 5 in the NFL. I've been saying that as long as they can stay healthy. It's a big if. The big issue last year, but this team in defense is way too talented and way too loaded at all 3 levels. Defensive line, linebacker, secondary. It does not matter. This defense has been excellently put together by Chris Grier, and as long as Anthony Weaver has his bearings to him, which I believe he does, this Dolphins defense is going to rank in the top 5 this year. Take it to the bank. Also, make sure you're following us on Instagram. At Dolphins Today IG is the handle. We want to get to 500 followers as soon as possible. And when we do that, we're going to do a Q&A from our IG DMs, not on our live show. We put out daily content on our Instagram. And if you want Dolphins news, rumors, and content in between each of our videos, our Instagram is the best place to find it. You see the handle down below, Dolphins Today IG. Hit that follow right now. Shorts, we got it all over there. So make sure you go give us a follow. Tim Boo with a question. What is Miami going to do now with the backup quarterbacks? Well, we put out a show earlier in the week on Ryan Tannehill and why I believe that is very important for the Dolphins to really potentially address that backup quarterback spot, because Mike White and Skylar Thompson were absolutely horrific against the Atlanta Falcons in their first preseason game. And I think it would be smart for Grier to be proactive here and potentially go out and sign Ryan Tannehill or go out and inquire about a trade, at least just kind of get the feel for what the backup quarterback market could be, because if Tua goes down, this roster is way too talented to just punt this season. And that's what you would be doing with Mike White and Skylar Thompson playing quarterback. I'm not out here to tell you that Ryan Tannehill or any other backup quarterbacks in the NFL would bring the Dolphins to Super Bowl. That's not what I'm trying to say. But after watching White and Skylar play, I can confidently say they would at least be more competitive and get this team to a playoff game. I know Skylar played in a playoff game before, but watching him try to work with those second-teamers in the first preseason game was a tough, tough watch. I don't think the Dolphins' backup situation right now is very, very good at all, and I'd be going to try to get out Ryan Tannehill or maybe trade for another player out there. Quentin Lott with a question here. You only have 2 more preseason games. Why wait to get a backup QB in O-line personnel? It's a great question. From Chris Grier's perspective, he might be waiting to see if anyone shakes through the cracks or anything like that on roster cutdown day, because the Dolphins have to cut down from 90 to 53. Well, so do 31 other NFL teams, right? So there's going to be players that are on rosters right now that end up becoming free agents. And not all of them are going to be garbage. There are going to be some good players available on the free agency market after roster cutdown day. So what happens if a surprise cut happens with a different team on the interior offensive line? Well, then maybe Miami can go out and scoop one of them up. Or if a quarterback gets cut, like we talked about Tyler Huntley earlier in the week. Why are the Browns going to keep 3 QBs with Deshaun Watson, Jameis Winston, and Tyler Huntley? If Huntley is available, well, maybe Miami goes out and signs one of them if they view him as an upgrade over Skylar Thompson or Mike White. So, to me, I know a lot of people, like myself, want to be proactive about these situations and go out and get something done to upgrade this roster now, but it could be just for the simple fact of waiting to see who ends up getting released August 27th on roster cutdown day, because after that, you still got what? 10 days until the season begins on September 8th, so there would be time to make the decision on if there's a good free agent available now, or maybe we have to go out and strike a trade for someone that made a 53-man roster. All right, predict the Miami Dolphins 2024 record for me. Let me know what you think the Dolphins are going to go this season down in the comment section. After the final preseason game and after the Dolphins roster cutdown day, we will be doing a video predicting the Miami Dolphins record one final time. So before we get there, though, I want to know what you guys have to say right now. David Ferguson with a question. Why did the Miami Dolphins let go of UDFA quarterback Gavin Hardison? I am asking myself that every single day. I think there was no secret that I had an affection for Gavin Hardison. Like, I wasn't going to come up here and say that I believed he was going to be some otherworldly story and quarterback, undrafted free agent out of UTEP who becomes NFL starter and MVP caliber guy. No, but he had such a strong arm. It would have at least intrigued me to watch him play against other teams in the NFL preseason. Now, ultimately, Chris Grier felt it necessary to cut down to 3 quarterbacks and then find a different roster spot for like an offensive lineman or defensive lineman. But I would have liked to see Gavin Hardison stick on this roster and perform in the preseason, because even if he stunk, I would have rather watched him stink it up in week 1 against Atlanta and said, okay, we know that he is not going to be on this roster, rather than have to watch Mike White and Skylar Thompson play a half of football each and be like, well, both these guys are not good. Now where do we go from here? Gavin Hardison would have at least given you a definitive answer with his play. DJ Guile, hopefully I said that right. Dolphins. Do you think the Dolphins going to fight for the division with the Jets? I think the Dolphins are better than the Jets. And the NFL pundits out there might disagree, but I don't think the Jets are going to have that good of a season. I think they're going to be an 8-9 or 9-8 squad, because do we really believe 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers coming off a torn Achilles is going to be like that dude? Obviously, he is not someone that needs the explosiveness of a quarterback with a fully healthy Achilles. Like, it's a different story if Lamar Jackson tears an Achilles and Aaron Rodgers, right? Because Lamar Jackson needs that Achilles much more at this stage of his career than Aaron Rodgers does. But I don't really love their offensive line in New York. I don't think their wide receivers out of Garrett Wilson are that good. And I think Robert Saleh might be one of the worst head coaches in all of football. Like, I think he's bottom 5. I just don't think that team is as good as people want to make them out to be. I think the Dolphins roster from top to bottom is better, and they have a better head coach. I believe the Dolphins are a better team than them, and I think the Miami Dolphins will win the AFC East, because I see the Jets struggling at 8-9, 9-8, and I see the Bills regressing down to 10-7, hey, maybe even 9-8 as well, with some of their losses in the secondary and wide receiver core too. So to me, I think this is the Dolphins division to lose, and the fact that they're third in terms of Vegas odds just seems like good value to me. Not going to tell you to go bet your money, but all I'll say is that when I went home to New York a couple weeks ago, I might have placed a couple futures on the Miami Dolphins. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel, because you don't want to miss any piece of Miami Dolphins news or rumors. We're on the road to 58,000 subscribers. Would like to get there by the end of this week. Almost 300 away. Hit that sub button right now if you want daily content surrounding the Fins. That includes news, rumors, the whole 9 yards. It does not matter. Whatever you need surrounding the Dolphins, we will have you covered. So hit that sub button right now. Also, make sure you go get a Dolphins jersey. Season is just around the corner. If you want to represent Miami on Sundays, best way to do it is get your jerseys at chatsports.com/Dolphins jersey. You can get a Waddle jersey, Ramsey, Tua, Phillips, Chubb, Tyreek Hill. It does not matter. Any color, any size, any style, any player. Chatsports.com/Dolphins jersey is the link. That link will be in the description and comments of today's show. Make sure you get yours today so you could be representing the Miami Dolphins on every single game day. I'll be excited to see the Dolphins wear these at home in week 2 against the Buffalo Bills on Thursday Night Football. So make sure you get those jerseys with them. David Richards with a question here. Are we going to win the AFC? Now, I just stated that I believe the Dolphins will win the AFC East. I do predict them and project them to win the division, just because I think their roster is better than everyone else, and I've seen some other teams kind of go downhill, if you will. Obviously, you don't have to worry about New England, because that offense is going to be terrible this season. But in terms of the entire AFC, it really depends to me on how this team performs in the regular season. Because if the Dolphins have to go on the road to Kansas City, on the road to Baltimore, on the road to Cincinnati in the divisional round or the AFC Championship game, Like, it's probably going to be very difficult for this team to make it out. It just is this fact of the matter. And I don't want to be negative, but I do feel that way. But on the flip hand, if Miami is somehow a much better team down the stretch than last season, they go 13-4, they are the number 1 seed in the AFC, then I think winning the AFC is very much on the table. Because if teams have to travel to Miami in January, that sets up the Dolphins for a lot more success. Think about this. There's a lot of northern teams in the AFC that are good. Kansas City, Cincy, those teams I mentioned, Buffalo, right? Like, it's a little bit of a style difference having to come down to South Beach to play a playoff game. Now, it's obviously going to be nicer weather, which benefits the Miami Dolphins track and field offense, but it also might be a little overwhelming for players in the heat. We know players struggle in Miami during September and October at times due to the heat in the daylight, but it could play a factor as well at home. It also just helps your own offense because we've known the struggles Miami has had playing in cold games on the road. So if they're all played at home, sure, I give them a chance to make it out of the AFC. But if they have to go on the road for multiple games against Cincinnati, Baltimore, and Kansas City, it's going to be tough. But hey, maybe they get lucky and have to play in Houston. Sure, it's a tough environment, but at least you don't have to worry about the cold because it's in a dome. Angel, do you think Quentin Bell, Ethan Bonner, and Patrick Morris can make the 53-man roster? Great question. I think 2 of 3 will. I believe Quentin Bell will make the roster as the 5th edge rusher. I think Ethan Bonner will make the roster as the 5th or 6th corner. Patrick Morris is a question mark, man. I want him to make it. I think he's had a better camp and so far a better preseason than Elijah Campbell. But if I had to predict all 3 to make it, odds would say all 3 won't make it. But I do think 2 of the 3 will. I hope McMorris can. If not, I hope no other team scoops him up and the Dolphins could keep McMorris on the Dolphins practice squad this upcoming season. Dark Reaper with a magic logo. Shot to the heart, man. But appreciate the question. Appreciate you coming into the stream. Who will win the backup quarterback job, Mike White or Skylar Thompson? Oh, man. Shit, it's hard to answer this question after watching them both play. They were both bad. I mean, Mike White was so bad that I think I'm going to answer Skylar Thompson. And I said that coming in the camp that I believed out of the 2 guys that I think Skylar was the more likely player to be the backup quarterback for the Dolphins this year. I think I'm going to stick to that. Mike White really, really struggled in that first preseason game. That's kind of where I'm going to lean there. Yeah, ideally, none of them are the backup quarterback, and you have a better backup in terms of a trade or maybe even Ryan Tannehill. But man, oh man, those 2 players both have struggled quite a bit. But I will answer that question with Skylar Thompson. He's had more experience in the system. He performed better in the first week of the preseason. So that's my final answer, Skylar Thompson. All right, we asked this earlier, but make sure you get this question in before we end today's episode. Predict the Miami Dolphins 2024 record for me. Double down. Let me know who you think the Dolphins are going to go in the regular season. A lot of fun, man. Can't wait for the season to really get underway. So let me know your record predictions down in the comment section. Also, make sure you follow us on Instagram. Set it off the top. Dolphins Today IG is the handle. Best place to get your Dolphins content outside of YouTube, and you'll be covered all 24 hours outside of our YouTube coverage. So make sure you go give us a follow over there. Subscribe over here. Everything is working out in Dolphins land. So Dolphins Today IG. I'll see you on a video tomorrow. Go Fins. All right. 3 segments down. 1 more to go. 1 more to go. Oh, Red Runs is watching in Miami Gardens. Listen, we don't have a super chat menu today, but it would be nice if we could get a super chat here on the channel. I know we had a big stream last Friday, and hopefully we have another fun big stream on Saturday. But I think we have a streak going of at least 1 super chat on every single live show we've done. So hopefully we can keep that streak going because we are dangerously close to letting that end. Letting that end. Dallas suburb. Cedar Hill, Cedar Hill. I actually think it's Cedar because there's a golf course name called Cedar's Crest, and I played it. Good course. Greens were in bad shape. I wonder if they fixed them. I played it a year ago. Really cool design, and the fairways and rough and tee boxes were pure, but those tee boxes or those greens were tough. Those greens were tough. Oh, the streak is going. Streak's alive, baby. Streak is alive. Lord Cedar. Yeah, Cedar Hill. Quentin, I got you. Cedar. Lord Buddy Bear with a $2 super chat. Okay, keep streak going. Raiders fan, by the way. Trouble pulling that right now, so Matt's going to build it to get that on screen. But appreciate you, Buddy Bear. Hopefully everything's going well with you, LBB. Hey, did you ever – I forgot if you told me it happened already or not. Did you ever get the teeth fixed, Lord Buddy Bear? You ever get the teeth fixed? Hopefully. Devon says, do you think Storm Duck will make the roster? Unfortunately not. I like him, but I don't think he's going to be good enough to make this roster in a competitive room with Saran Neal, Ethan Bonner, Cam Smith, Nick Needham. They're all playing well. Permanent on 28th of August. We're slowly approaching. What is that, 15 days away? You nervous, Lord Buddy Bear? You nervous? I'd understand if you were. I will say that. I'd understand if you were. Terrion Arnold not going to miss any time. Good for Terrion Arnold. He's kind of a dog, man. Shout out to Diaz for following me on Twitter. Devo followed us on Instagram. Shout out to Devo. You see it right there, Devo. I didn't lie to you, right? Had 2 posts today. Ryan Tannehill short. Jalen Phillips yesterday. Teair Tart news as well earlier. Yeah, paying them's not going to be fun. Red Run says, do you think the entire cornerback room will make it? I project 6. I think Kader Kohu, Jalen Ramsey, Kendall Fuller are the lock of locks. I'll give Cam Smith a roster spot just because he was a second-round pick from last year, but he doesn't really deserve it based off this training camp. But I'll give him one more year. So I think Cam Smith is on there as your 4th corner. I think Ethan Bonner's 5. And that's where it gets dicey. Saran Neal or Nick Needham 6. Ethan Bonner's played good enough to be on this team, man. I think they keep 6 corners. It'll be interesting to see which 2 get it out of Nick Needham, Saran Neal, and Ethan Bonner. It's going to be interesting. Shout out to Lord Buddy Bear. We read it on screen. Kept the streak alive, baby. Kept the streak alive. That's all that matters. Before we get into this next segment, Goldman, can we check the player card L3 to make sure that's all good? And then once we get that, I can put that in preview, and then we'll be good to go here in the final segment. Yeah, with Cam Smith. Check that here. And sorry, there's some behind-the-scenes stuff, guys, and then we'll get going here with the final show, which is a little bit of a preview for the first game or the second preseason game for the Fins. This one with Cam Smith. Okay, cool. Yeah, it's the only one in this one. No, that one was old. I don't know why that's in there. All right, when you get ready here, because this is a cold open, then we'll get into this show. We'll get into the show. What's up, Fins Take? Good to see you, my friend. Fins up, man. Fins up, baby. There should be a custom L3 as well on this one. Red runs. Man, that's a good question. Would have been a fun one in the mailbag, but just missed it. Just missed it. Jamar Chase wasn't at practice today because of the contract. Wasn't sure if that was injury or contract related, but there it is. All right, whenever you're ready. Before we get into today's show, make sure you are subscribed to the channel because the Dolphins take on the Washington Commanders in their second preseason game out of 3, and we will be live for that, just like we were live for the first game against the Atlanta Falcons, which was a ton of fun. 6 p.m. Eastern Time for 7 p.m. game, 5 p.m. Central Time this Saturday, August 17th. Join myself and producer Matt Goldman as we watch the Dolphins take on the Commanders. It'll be tons of fun, and on today's show, we're going to preview that game with 10 players to watch, so stay with us. All right, Washington does come to town here on Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time game in Miami Gardens. The Dolphins are 1-point favorites, which actually surprised me a little bit because we were unsure if the Dolphins starters are going to play and how long they would play if they do, but we do expect to see Jayden Daniels in this game, the second overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, who had one really good drive for Washington against New York in their first preseason game. But today, we're going to look at 10 players that I have my eye on for. We did this for the first preseason game, and it was actually spot on. Some of the players that we had on there, Malik Washington, Jack Driscoll, Jalen Wright. And to me, I think we all want to see who performs. And on that list as well last week was Teair Tart, because I said he needed to perform well. Ultimately, didn't perform well enough as he got released earlier on in the week. But we're going to have 10 players once again that I am specifically keeping an eye out for this game. We'll start with number 10 here, last that made my list. Deshaun Ham, the defensive lineman, who is part of the reason why the Dolphins, I think, felt comfortable moving on from Teair Tart, because they've gotten a lot of productivity from some of these depth guys at defensive line here. Benito Jones, Deshaun Hand, Jonathan Harris, Isaiah Mack, Brandon Pillai. Like, they've been very good, and with Neville Gallimore also playing pretty well, I'm intrigued to see which defensive lineman continues to have momentum build, because not all of them are going to make the roster, but there's going to be a good chunk of them that do. I want to see how Deshaun Hand performs on Saturday. Channing Tindall, he was on our first list, and he's going to be on our second list as well, because he's going to need to have good performances every single preseason game and almost every single practice if he wants to make this roster, just due to the fact that Duke Riley has been so good, and he is on the outside looking in, as I only project the Dolphins to keep 4 inside linebackers. Now, Tindall did good stuff in that game against Atlanta just 1 week ago. He had 7 tackles and even had a sack, which ended the first half when he shot out of a cannon and fired through a gap on the right side of that offensive line to absolutely swallow up Taylor Heineke. Like, I did like what I saw from Tindall in that first preseason game, but it's still going to be an uphill battle for him to make this roster, as I do project him being on the outside of the 53-man looking in. It might be only by a couple players. He could be that 55th, 56th guy, but if he wants to potentially jump Duke Riley for that 4th linebacker spot, he is going to have another good preseason game and another good week of practice and another good preseason game to round out the Dolphins' 3 preseason games. But hopefully he's able to do it, because I'm rooting for the man. Let me know, though, your thoughts on Channing Tindall down in the comment section. Will he make the Dolphins' 53-man roster? Type Y for yes or type N for no. Former 3rd-round pick out of Georgia. A lot of hope when the Finns took him. Evidently hasn't worked out. He's continuing to grind. Patrick Paul comes in at number 8 on our list. The 2nd-round pick from 2024 out of Houston had an unbelievably good game against the Atlanta Falcons in their first preseason game, and I am excited to see him play again, because he is the future of this offensive line. As Teron Armstead, I think he's going to retire after this season, and Patrick Paul slots in to be his replacement on that left tackle spot for Tua Tagovailoa in the future. And in Paul's first real game action in a Dolphins uniform, he was very, very good. He was graded out as the 3rd highest player from the Miami Dolphins offense against the Atlanta Falcons, with a 64.7 overall rating, a 73.6 pass block, which really impressed me, because that's the one thing you need to work on technique, footwork. He has the size, he has the athleticism, but needs to get his technique down, and he did really, really well. Run block was up in the air, but really no one was able to run block well for Miami. They couldn't run the football outside of Jaylen Wright's heroics, so it is what it is. But Patrick Paul, really good game against the Falcons. See if he can carry it over and play really good again against the Washington Commanders. Number 7 on the list, Jody Fortson Jr., the tight end, who I went out on the limb and said that was going to be a roster or going to have a roster spot on 53-man roster cutdown day. Now, that might not be the case anymore because Julian Hill, Durham Smythe, and Jonnu Smith look to be locks, and they've had really strong camps, and none of them played in the first preseason game. But Fortson Jr. is going to need to have some excellent plays here in this game if he wants to try to build momentum for him towards the roster. Unclear of how many tight ends that the Dolphins will end up keeping. Mike McDaniel in 1 year kept only 2. In 1 year, he kept 5. Does he go somewhere in the middle for 3? I doubt it's 4 with some other roster positions needing more guys than they usually do. So to me, I think Jody Fortson Jr. might be on the outside looking in, but needs to have a good game. Rookie Patrick McMorris makes this list. He was not on the list initially, but after having such a strong performance against the Atlanta Falcons, I am just excited to see what the 6th-round rookie out of Cal can bring to the table once again. He was the best player on that Dolphins defense against Atlanta. He led the team in tackles with 8. He had 2 TFLs. As a safety, he was not afraid to get in the box and make a play in the run game, and he even did a couple really nice plays at the goal line. I remember specifically in the first quarter after the Dolphins turned the ball over on that Skylar Thompson pick, Atlanta had it at the 3-yard line on 3rd and goal. They tried to run it, and Patrick McMorris was there alongside a defensive lineman to get the stop at the 2-yard line. Ultimately, Atlanta did score, but McMorris made the stop initially. He also had a really solid PBU in that game and has had another strong week of practice leading up to this Washington Commanders bout on Saturday. So to me, I really like where McMorris is at, and I'd like to see him continue to stack these strong performances in preseason and potentially nab a roster spot after not really, in my mind, having one as a 6th-round rookie from Cal. 5 more players to talk about, but we are sponsored by PrizePicks, the #1 daily fantasy sports app on the market, and I use PrizePicks on a daily basis, and I have so much fun using them because this is the easiest way to play daily fantasy. You got to pick 2 or more player stat projections, pick more or less. You can go to the football with it being back in the preseason. Regular season's coming back soon. College football is almost here. You go to the basketball as it comes up in just a second, or you got baseball as well. Get started with PrizePicks. All you got to do is pick more or less. It's really that easy. You can turn $10 into $1,000. Yeah, you heard that correctly. 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. They also have the best promotions in the game. Taco Tuesdays, Flex Fridays. It does not matter. Make sure you get started with PrizePicks, and they're actually offering you a great deal right now. Code CLNS when you go to prizepicks.com/CLNS or download the PrizePicks app and input code CLNS can get you a first deposit match up to $100. Yep. Heard that right. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Number 5, Jaylen Wright. How could we not mention the Tennessee running back? After his electrifying performance against the Atlanta Falcons, it just left a lot of Dolphins fans, including myself, hungry and wanting more. I mean, when you look at what he did against the Atlanta Falcons, 10 carries, 55 yards, 1 touchdown. He had that ridiculous bobble, ended up catching reverse fields for 14 yards, looking like Barry Sanders out there. Jaylen Wright was very, very fun to watch. I don't know what the snap percentage will be with other running backs, with Jeff Wilson being a little bit on the injured list this past week, but hopefully Jaylen Wright gets another handful of carries and snaps and touches, and he's able to showcase why he was a 4th-round pick for the Dolphins in this past draft. Cam Smith makes the list after he was not on it a week ago because, well, he didn't play in last week's game due to injury, but coming off the injured list, and he was never on like a PUP list or anything like that, but finally returned to practice earlier this week. Tuesday's padded practice was the first time we saw Cam Smith for quite a while, and the former 2nd-round pick from South Carolina needs to kind of reaffirm the reason that he was selected as in the 2nd round by Chris Grier, because he did not play last year under Vic Fangio, has battled injuries earlier in this training camp, And in a competitive cornerback room that features Ethan Bonner, Saran Neal, Nick Needham, Kader Kohu, Jalen Ramsey, Kendall Fuller. There's a lot of names I just mentioned for roster spots that can't house them all. I believe Smith will ultimately be on this roster during cutdown day just because it's only 1 year removed since he was a top 55 selection. But it's hard to kind of, I guess, say that he deserves a roster spot. Like, I can't defend him right now. I think he is on this team, but if he's able to have good practices over the next week or two and have a good preseason game tonight against the Commanders and next week against the Buccaneers, then we'll feel right with the world and kind of justify that pick that Chris Grier had a year ago. A couple more players still to talk about on today's show, but who are you most excited to watch tonight? I got to be honest, I'm excited to just watch anyone play football for the Dolphins in a uniform. Well, maybe that's not true because I got to watch Skylar, Thompson, and Mike White play again, and that was brutal last week. Hopefully it's better this week, but drop a name for me down in the comment section on who you were most excited to watch tonight. Maybe it's another rookie, Malik Washington. The wide receiver from Virginia did a lot of nice things in that first preseason game, but ultimately could not really get open in tough situations with physicality being pushed onto him. He had really nice punt returns and showcased his athleticism and quick movements and lateral movements there, but didn't really do a lot in the passing game. You see it on the bottom of your screen. Had 4 targets in that game, only caught 1 of them for 5 yards. I'd like to see Malik Washington have a better game this week. Specifically because I think it's more and more likely that Odell Beckham Jr. misses the first game of the season. And I thought Malik Washington could be that third wide receiver for the Fins, but maybe it ultimately ends up being River Craycraft or Braxton Berrios to at least begin the season since they're more experienced and have had more success in the NFL as a whole, but also in this Mike McDaniel offense. The 2 QBs, and I know it's a little cop-out to put both of them on here as your number 2, but after watching the horrific display that was these 2 guys throwing the football against the Atlanta Falcons, it can't get worse, right? At least you would hope it doesn't get worse. And if they want to reaffirm to the fan base and this coaching staff and front office that one of them is deserving to be the backup to Tua Tagovailoa, they're gonna need to have better games than this one. That is for sure. If I see stats and the eye tests like this one again, it really is time to bring in a different quarterback. The number 1 guy that I am excited to watch, football guy, if you will, that I am putting a trenchman up here, Jack Driscoll. I projected him to be the starting right guard before training camp began because I actually thought he was going to beat out Rob Jones and Liam Eichenberg for that spot. But with Isaiah Wynn starting on the PUP list for a long time, with Aaron Brewer's injury that has moved Liam Eichenberg to the starting spot, there is still a chance for Jack Driscoll to be the starting right guard for the Miami Dolphins. Now, it's not under the right circumstances in my book because I would have liked to see him beat out both Eichenberg and Rob Jones, but he now might be starting alongside them for all we know. But Driscoll still has a chance to start that right guard spot, performed really well in the first preseason game. I initially thought he struggled after starting as the center, but when he got moved to right guard later on in the game, he performed a lot better, and I think I would like to see him at right guard. Even if Eichenberg projects to be your starting center with Aaron Brewer on the injured list right now, I would put Eichenberg at center, Driscoll at right guard to kind of see how Jack performs in his second game for the Dolphins in that role because he might have to do it in a bigger stage week 1 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. All right, we will be live later tonight. Like I said, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Central Time, Dolphins, Commanders, Washington, Jaden Daniels come into South Beach. Let's see how these 2 teams face off and who can really improve their stock or really put their stock in the gutter for the Miami Dolphins. But make sure you are subscribed to the channel and join us later today because it's going to be a lot of fun. All right. That does it, folks. That does it. Oh. Got a $5 super chat from Agent Navy. Shout out to you, my friend, Agent Navy. Cheers. Just coffee. Just coffee today. We saved the good stuff for Saturdays and Fridays. Save the good stuff for Saturday and Fridays. What's up, Ty, man? Good to see you, my friend. How about Kane Angel stepping up in the building, too? Good to see you, my friend. Red Run says, does Taj Washington come in? When does? Never. not never, but actually not this year because he was placed on IR. And if you're placed on IR in the preseason, well, that means you're done for the entire year. So only serious injuries go on the IR. Now, you can get placed on the IR, I believe it's after roster cutdown day. Like, once the roster gets trimmed to 53 people, you can then put people on IR, and it's 4 to 8 games. But if you get put on IR prior to the roster cutdown day, it means you're out for the entire year and you're not eligible to come off. So technically, if the Dolphins knew that Isaiah Wynn or Odell Beckham Jr. were going to be on the IR to start the season, and they're going to miss 4 games, you can wait till roster cutdown day. Once those get pushed out to the NFL and they're officially announced, you then immediately put OBJ and Isaiah Wynn on the IR, which allows you to then re-sign 2 players that you just cut on cutdown day. It's a little workaround, but if you tell them, hey, we're keeping you, but we're going to technically have to cut you to keep you, and then just give us a couple hours, like that can happen. But if you're placed on the IR prior to that, no, you're done. You're done. We are 1 subscriber away from 57,700. There's 120 people in here. If you're watching, I got to be honest, you probably are subscribed because you guys are legends and real ones. But if not, it'd be nice to get a subscription. Not costing you anything. Completely free content here. Live shows every week, twice a week actually, with watch parties starting up again. And we put out daily content, sometimes twice a day too. So we'll give it a couple minutes to hit that sub button. If not, we'll sign off. And we'll see you live on Saturday, but we'll have you covered with videos every single day leading up to that Saturday game. Hey, someone subscribed. I don't know who it is, but shout out to you for getting us to 57,700. I think we're going to leave it there on a high note then. We got there, exactly 300 away from 58K. I believe we will get there by the end of this week, which is the goal, because if we can't get 300 subscribers with a watch party spanning from Wednesday to today or Sunday, that would be quite the disappointment. But either way, I like where we're at. Shout out to all the real ones who tuned in. Over 2,000 people hanging in here and have a good time. For Matt Goldman, shout out to him for producing today's show. Nick Roloff, peace out.